Hi everyone, welcome back to our Instagram live series. I'm Rebecca Hawkwriter, the CMO of GoStork. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're all having a good day. We are so excited today, and especially during Pride, to have Gena Jaffe joining us. She is the founder of Connecting Rainbows. She's a mother of two through reciprocal IVF, and she has some really just important and educational information to share all about LGBTQ plus family building and protection of parental rights and so much more. So I'm just working on adding her now. Please bear with me. She should be on in just a second.
Hi.
Hi! That delay is always a little scary.
I know.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you.
I know.
I should more accurately probably ask, how busy are you? I know it's quite a month.
Busy.
You have a lot going on, right?
Yeah, no, in such a good way. I love Pride Month, and it's crazy that it's like almost over.
I
But
know.
but yeah, definitely busy.
I know. Yeah, and on that note, I was super busy last night because we received so many questions to ask you from
Great.
Instagram followers and from other channels and through email. Once we announced the topic, we just received so many questions for you. So just really excited, and we'll get to as many as we can, we promise.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and of course, can't wait to get to all of that. But first, just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys for joining. Hi, everyone. Thanks for submitting your questions, those who did. And just really quickly, before we dive in, if you're new to us, GoStork is the first fertility marketplace where intended parents find, compare, and connect with top fertility providers. So we have over 50 top surrogacy agencies on our platform, over 10,000 egg donors from many different agencies. So we're the largest free online database of egg donors, and just launched the ability to apply for fertility financing. So you can apply for loans to support your journey right from our homepage. And then, of course, through these lives, we love to help bring you insights, tips, support from the experts, as well as from those who have walked the path you may just be beginning as a new intended parent. And so in Gena, we have both, right?
Yeah.
So just to get right into it, Gena, as a lawyer, a mother of two through reciprocal IVF, and then inspired by your journey, also the founder of Connecting Rainbows, which is a wonderful organization that we'll discuss more in a few minutes. I'd love to just start by hearing all about your beautiful family and your family building journey and just what that looked like.
Yeah, I mean, it was a journey. I think that,
It's a good word.
most people will share. I like to say it was kind of an emotional roller coaster, but very, very worth it. In in brief, so my wife and I originally wanted to both carry, and so she's 3 years older, so we thought, okay, we'll get a bunch of sperm, we'll do IUI, she'll go first, we'll use the same donor, and then I will go second. Well, she was on anxiety medication that she was not able to be on while she was pregnant, so started weaning off of that and did not go well. So kind of put the brakes on our journey. And, while that was all happening, I said to her, why don't I get pregnant first? And she said, look, I don't want to give up having, being pregnant and having a biological genetic child. So I said, well, why don't I carry your eggs? And I didn't know about reciprocal IVF. Like, it wasn't really like, I feel like it wasn't it was a thing, but it wasn't like very talked about. I saw another lesbian couple on Instagram who went through a reciprocal IVF. So that's kind of where I think I got the idea. So kind of switched gears at our fertility clinic. I went through the testing and found a cyst on my ovary, had to get surgery. But then we went through the egg retrieval process, and our first fresh transfer was our son. So we were very blessed in that regard, even though it was like several months later than we originally had hoped for. It gave us him. So now moving on to baby two, the plan was always that I would try to use my eggs. People, I feel like, people, you grow up and you're like, oh, I'm going to have a kid that looks like me or whatever. Well, after carrying and raising our son, he couldn't be any more mine. So I said, we don't need to do that. We have two embryos. Let's go through and use those and do, frozen transfer. So we went in, to do the frozen transfer, and the one embryo did not survive the thaw, which is like very rare,
Mhm.
and the other one did not take. So now we're back to square one. And since we were on that path, I was like, let's do another egg retrieval. So we went to kind of start the process, and my wife needed a hysterectomy at this point. So she had a massive fibroid. So that was quite a recovery. So in the middle of that recovery, I did 3 IUIs that did not work. So after my wife was healed, we did another egg retrieval and got pregnant on our fresh transfer. Apparently, that's our luck, with our daughter Josie. So it wasn't anything we had planned,
Mhm. Never
but
is, right?
no. And I think, and now that I'm on the other side of it, of course, it's easier to say, but I can say that I'm so glad every time that it didn't work, because I wouldn't have the babies that I
Mhm.
have now.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think you kind of recently had a first birthday party, well, still during a little bit during quarantine. And also speaking of family activities, I hear you've been celebrating Pride all month. So just any favorite moments or just ways that you worked Pride into your regularly scheduled family programming?
A lot of new clothing options, lots of
Mhm.
rainbows. Bringing our flag with it. We live near a very gay town. So flags everywhere, trans flags, the new pride flag, all that, and just kind of, our son is 4, so
Mhm.
doesn't quite get it all yet, but really kind of having that conversation with him where we would go places, and I would show him videos of drag, and just talk
Mhm.
about, hey, like, this is they have boy parts, but dressed as in more of a girly clothes, and just kind of having that conversation with him. And kids just take to it. They're like, okay,
Mhm.
cool.
Me too.
He's like, oh, am I a girl? I was like, if you want to be, like, if you feel like you are. He's like, oh, okay. Painted his nails, just like, we didn't do a whole lot because my daughter's 1,
Mhm.
and you know not a lot of stuff that we could really take her to, and nap schedules conflicting, so I did a lot of
Yeah.
virtual celebrations with friends on Instagram and all of that.
Oh, I love that. And kind of getting back to your family building journey now, I'd love to know what you looked for in a fertility clinic that was the right fit for you. Whether related to quality of care, but also LGBTQ friendly. Once we announced that we were going to talk about this topic, we also had questions about this. So I think like we could look at it from two perspectives. Your thoughts for clinics about being welcoming and inclusive, but also your thoughts for prospective parents just looking for their clinic and assessing their options, just what to look for from, for their personal experience and expectations.
Yeah, we were lucky that we had a lesbian couple that lived right by us, that
Mhm.
was, when we met them, they were pregnant. So we were like, what clinic did you go to?
Mhm.
And that's the clinic we went to. I think in our community, word of mouth is so powerful and important. But if you don't have that, I always say to everyone, you should view that first appointment as an interview, that you're interviewing them, that you're going in there and you're saying, hey, how do I feel? Do I get a good vibe? Did I, mesh well with the doctor, with the staff? You're going to be there a lot. We were there, if you're going through IVF, you're there at some points every other day, getting blood
Yeah.
work done and testing. And, for us, since we did have a lot of bumps in the road, there were a lot of emotional phone calls, and I would cry on the phone with my doctor, and I would email her and she'd be responsive, and I'm actually friends with her now. Just like, you want to really make sure that you feel supported from that very first appointment, and you don't have to feel like you need to go with that certain practice. I think that looking at a website is important. Do they use inclusive language? Do they have a section about, if you're a part of the community, do they have a section about LGBTQ plus family building? I don't want to see just a little rainbow flag somewhere, but like, do you have
Mhm.
a section on reciprocal IVF or, stuff like that? But have a list, go in with a list of questions,
Mhm.
concerns. Yeah. And, go to your community, ask, hey, what do you think about this clinic? The clinics that are listed on Connecting Rainbows have been, um, I can't say legally vetted, but have come recommended from members of the LGBTQ plus community that they are inclusive clinics. So, kind of doing due diligence, making sure that, we
Absolutely.
are, you know, promoting the clinics that are inclusive.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's such an important message that hopefully clinics all take to heart. I know some do already, but
Hmm.
moving on to another important message that you consistently share, and which is also tied into supporting and protecting families, and it's just all about parental rights and why being on the birth certificate isn't necessarily enough. So, can you walk us through what especially same-sex parents need to be aware of? And again, to preface this, when we announced this topic, we were already going to talk about it, of course, but we received so many related
I
questions to this topic from,
know.
for reciprocal IVF, which parent needs to apply for second parent adoption? And, how do you make sure the sperm donor's rights are terminated and they can never assert rights in the future? And what are the costs involved in the legal process? What is the legal process of ensuring your rights? So
Yeah.
it's not a short topic or answer.
No.
We can break it into segments, but I will stop talking and let you take it from here.
Okay. I'm going to start at the beginning, which is
Yes.
choosing sperm. So
Great.
obviously, if you're somebody who needs to get sperm, if you go through a sperm bank, the rights are already terminated. So, by making a donation, that sperm donor is already terminating their rights. So if you're buying the sperm from the cryobank, you're good. Sometimes the bank will have to submit like that waiver to the court, but you don't need to do anything extra with a lawyer. If you're using a known donor, then you need, before you do anything at all, you need to have a contract written up that is terminating the parental rights of that donor. So that is crucial because they're contributing genetic material. If they don't waive those rights, then they can come back and be like, oh, that's my child. So before you do anything, before the insemination, before anything at all, that's when you want to go to a lawyer. So, I know that you had shared a few questions with me and I was looking and somebody had said like, hey, it costs money to have a lawyer draw a contract up, but it also
How
costs money for
much?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So every lawyer is going to charge something different, and especially
Right.
every state where you're located. I don't know, sperm donor contract, maybe $1,000, like, but again, it's going to be different in different locations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Vial of sperm, about $1,000. So, and you're going to be buying multiple vials of sperm from a cryobank. So going with a known donor does have its perks in that way. Saving money in that. So that's one piece to kind of, keep in mind. If you are like, okay, let's just put my situation, lesbian couple, we went through reciprocal IVF. So we used my wife's eggs and I carried. When I was in my second trimester, we contacted a lawyer to go through the second parent adoption process. So some states it's called step parent adoption. So this is when you are, in a relationship where one person is giving birth and the other person may or may not be contributing genetic material, because the gestational carrier, so the parent who gives birth, is the one who is considered the legal parent.
Mm-hmm.
Almost always. So my wife had to adopt her own genetic children in order to be considered
Mm-hmm.
the legal parent of our kids. So we both went on the birth certificate. The birth certificate does not give you legal parental rights. It is an
Mm-hmm.
administrative document governed by the laws of the state in which the child is born. So it's not a legal contract. And it's not something that can be relied on, because like if you look at the birth certificate, you're like, oh, well, two women can't make a baby,
Maybe.
unless one is trans. But you know what I mean? Like it's you can't do that. So they're going to say, well, which one is the biological, genetic, whatever. So in our second trimester, and I didn't know this, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a lawyer, but I do business law. The only reason I knew about this was because that lesbian couple who, went to the clinic was like, oh, we went through. And I was like, what? Why? That is ridiculous.
This information needs to be shared more, which thankful
It,
for you for doing so.
I mean, you can tell I get like aggressively, like I'm like aggressive about
I
it. I'm
like
like,
it. Aggressive
it's
is
so
good.
like, oh, it's frustrating, and it can
Mm-hmm.
definitely be um, very, it can be offensive. My wife had to get a
Mhm.
background check. She had to be fingerprinted to make sure that she was a fit parent to parent her genetic
When you're
child.
already married and you decided to have
We're
surgery
married.
and she,
We
correct.
had to enter into contract together at our clinic that these embryos that we created were ours. You know, it's like, what is happening?
And it just
Um,
feels counterintuitive, but you just have to make sure you're informed so that you're protected, right?
yeah,
And
and so for us, so my son was born January in 2017. So we're coming right off of an election, and we were like, oh God, no, we are going and doing this. Because at first we were like, oh, well, maybe we'll, maybe we'll wait until, we have both of our kids and then we'll do it after. And then, because, we were like, oh, Hillary's going to be in, we're good. No. So we
right.
ran to that courthouse. um, so it was about our second trimester that you
Yeah.
actually go to the attorney, have some paperwork drawn up, but you can't do the process until after the child is born because you need the birth certificate.
Mhm.
So that is, kind of the one thing that we did. For us, it was $2,000. Um, I've heard it be as high as like 3,500 depending on the location.
Mhm.
Again, if you're in metropolitan New York City, it's probably going to cost you more money. Um,
California. Yeah.
California, yeah, it's going to cost you more depending on where you're located. One question I do get from people is, should I do it child by child or kind of bulk them together? You should do it child by child because until that adoption is finalized, one of you is not going to be considered the legal parent. Now, people say, well, what is the risk of not doing that? Um, and it really depends. If you live in a liberal state and you don't really travel a lot, like internationally or travel to the not so liberal states, you're probably fine. Like you
Mhm.
probably will be okay. The issues arise with death and divorce. So when you get
Mhm.
divorced, who gets custody? Michigan just this year has had two cases where the courts were like, "Oh no, we're just the surrogate to the one mom," and it's like, wait, what? Sorry,
Mhm.
my dog is like scratching the door.
Mhm.
Um, it got now the case got remanded, but these children are now being put through this whole like court practice to be like who's the parent, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
There have been issues of where the legal parent passed away and then the grandparents come in and they say to the other parent like, no, that's not your kid, we're taking the child. It's like you just don't want to have to put a child through that. The other thing is inheritance rights. Is the child going to inherit from you if you're not the legal parent? So just to be safe, you don't want to be that case.
Right. So do the processing as soon as possible, child by child, each one.
Yes, child by child. They're not going to give you a bulk. Typically, they're not going to give you a bulk discount.
Yeah, and it's too hard
Maybe,
to predict too, like how long it will be in between,
right.
probably, right?
And
Which we
then they
actually
have,
have a question about that.
and like twins, even it's separate. It's
Right.
like separate filings because they're separate individuals. So it's not like a
It's a lot to consider, but you also have all this information on your website, which will so helpful for anyone who wants to follow up. But I do believe the lack of information around this was one of the discoveries that led you to your inspiration for connecting rainbows, right? So
yeah.
just tell us all about this helpful resource, your mission, and just how you support.
So, Connecting Rainbows is an organization that provides legal and fertility support to the LGBTQ plus community. The whole kind of mission is to start, grow, and protect your family. So we've got the fertility resources where the clinics are on there have come recommended from somebody within the LGBTQ plus community. We're building out the surrogacy section now of just like what to even expect. Obviously go to GoStork to find your agency because there's no directory on mine. That's not my expertise. But then we also have a directory of attorneys in 40, right now we have about, I think, 42 states in the US, Canada, and Australia to help you, with that second parent adoption, pre-birth orders, surrogacy agreements, anything like that. So these attorneys are not only competent in family building, but
Mhm.
also competent in working with the LGBTQ plus community because our legal needs are different. So what I had found was when I shared our journey on social media, people were like, why are you going through second parent adoption? I talked to a lawyer in my state and they said the birth certificate was fine. And I heard that over and over and over. And I was like, no, no, it's
Mhm.
wrong. And it's because this area of law is very niched. And people think that because they have this birth certificate where now you can have it say mom and mom or dad and dad, and that it's okay because marriage equality is okay, but marriage equality does not equal parental equality. And so I was like, okay, family lawyers, it's not family law, this is family building or family formation law. So
Mhm.
I have personally now spoken with all the attorneys that are on my website, and I'm still continuing to speak to different attorneys that specialize in this all over the world to just try to help our community make sure that they are protected. So, the idea originally was just to have like a directory of lawyers, and it kind of exploded now into all of this other stuff because I
Mhm.
realized it was a resource that people really needed. I had no idea, literally had no idea that it was something that people really, really
Mhm.
did need. So
Every
yeah,
new intended parent or, prospective patient that enters into their journey has the same question. So, you know, people will
yeah,
continue to need that.
yeah.
And so now that you've been through both your personal and professional journey in the fertility industry, just love to know what lessons you've learned along the way that you think would be helpful for those just kind of beginning their path to parenthood. So more specifically, I'll actually share some of the questions that were submitted to us through Instagram and other channels. Again, thank you to everyone in the last day who sent in so many questions. So, how much overall should a lesbian couple save up in advance for the journey?
Oh my
And
God.
this, of course, includes the legal costs that you mentioned. It's going to be a range, but if you have a general thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be quite a range because it depends if you're going to be using a known donor or if you're going to go through a sperm bank. Are you going to do at-home insemination versus IVF? We spent over $50,000. We bought 8 vials of sperm. We did um, three, so we did 2 egg retrievals, 3 embryo transfers, 3 IUIs. We have to pay to store the sperm, store the embryos, the lawyer fees, and then the IVF medications. That's where the bulk of the money is. Like they're expensive. That medication is expensive, and our insurance didn't cover. So
Would you
I'd
say
say
that's
save like,
safely on the higher end, or?
yeah, I would say like let's just put aside about 20.
Okay.
I know people who've spent
Yeah.
a lot less because they got pregnant on their first try, and it's like
Mhm.
good for you. um, but
Lovely.
let's say it's
Mhm.
$1,000 per vial of sperm. You're going to want to buy a couple just in case. Now, some sperm banks you can actually store the sperm there, and if you don't use it, you can sell it back at half of what you paid for.
So ask about
Um,
that in advance.
yes, ask about that in advance. If you need an egg donor, that's even more expensive.
Right.
So, then we're talking like what, 10 for an egg donor at
Well, it
least?
depends with all the fees and the agency involved. It can be upwards of 30 plus. And it depends too if the egg donor has proven fertility, prior successful, donation, if they have a grad school degree, or if they're a
Right.
specific race or ethnicity you're looking for. There's a lot of reasons that it can range. So,
Okay. So let's talk
yeah.
about if one of you has a uterus that you can use, you have one of you has eggs that
Listen.
you can use, you just need some sperm, then,
Yeah.
maybe let's say like 20 or so. Hi,
Hmm.
Jenny. My doctor's on here.
Hi. Thanks for joining. Heart back to you. And there was a related question that actually was something you just mentioned, but is it more expensive to use sperm bank sperm or a known donor?
It's definitely cheaper to use an own donor
Right.
because you're not paying them usually.
Yeah,
Now
just
you'll
reiterating
need
that.
you need the contract,
Right.
so you need a lawyer for that. But if
It
this
offsets.
right,
Right.
and if this person is willing and able to month after month, if you're not getting pregnant, like that's where you're going to save. Like if it takes you
Hmm.
several rounds of, either the at home insemination or, I don't know how it works with IUI and a known donor. I guess
Hmm.
they would just show up. Yes, you're going to
We'll check
save.
on that. Okay, so the next one, would you recommend taking breaks and trying to conceive or attempting back to back? And this is assuming that, the carrier isn't advanced maternal age, or my least favorite term ever, geriatric.
That'd be me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I
When
mean,
I
I
look like
think
I'm 90, I mean, anyway.
it's so rude.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so it really is going to depend. Did you have a miscarriage? Because then you're going to need to, wait a little bit. Do you have any, I mean, like that's the thing is like, do you have cysts or fibroids or anything like that? That it's really going to depend. But I think if it's just a negative, then I think it's really just the emotional
Right.
toll that it can take. Um, do you want to just keep going or just,
Hmm.
take a break? But it's definitely something to talk to your doctor about because there
Right.
could be underlying other issues as to why you're not getting
Yeah.
pregnant. But for me, we did a transfer in January that didn't work. Then we did an IUI in April, May, June. Then did the egg retrieval, and we did our transfer of Josie was the end of July. So I had
Okay.
I had gone through April, May, June, July.
Right. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the emotional toll, I'm sure, is a lot. If
Yeah.
you're working with a therapist too, you can just also consult about how quickly you want to keep trying, probably. But it is such a personal decision. So,
Yeah.
okay, the next one. Do fertility clinics always do fertility tests prior to starting IUI? And if not, what tests should one advocate for yourself to ensure the best chance of a successful pregnancy?
So they should. I know some that don't, just
Hmm.
because I've heard of friends who've gone in and they're like, oh, you have a regular period, you're good. But what I talked to my doctor about, and we actually did like a live on this, is that even though you're coming in, like let's say you're, a lesbian couple coming in and you're like, oh, we don't have issues, we just need sperm.
Yeah.
um, you know, there you still can have issues. I had a cyst on my ovary. My wife had a fibroid. Like, I think we both had like polyps on our uterus. Like there are things that can potentially cause issues that could have caused a miscarriage, and that we wouldn't have known about if we
Hmm.
didn't get this testing done. So, I know at least at our clinic and a lot of other clinics, you're going to want to just get an ultrasound, like a transvaginal ultrasound, where they're going to go in there, they're going to just check your uterus, check your ovaries, make sure things look good. We did a test where they checked to see if our tubes were open because we originally were going to do IUI. So you want to make sure that
Hmm.
your tubes are open so that you actually are dropping an egg down into your uterus. And then we did a test that was very unpleasant, but they stick a little camera up there and really just look at the inside of your, I guess it's your uterine wall. I don't know. Jenny, don't judge if I'm saying the wrong things. But I had like a polyp, and while I was awake, they like scraped it off. But the polyp can cause a miscarriage. So, if I hadn't undergone those things, I never, see, I was right. I wouldn't have
I
known.
love the
Uh,
fact check in the audience.
I know, I'm like, tell me, she's a doctor. But then, we had our blood work. We checked
It's the
like,
cavity. That's what the
the
camera was.
cavity, check the insides.
There we go.
And then there's, genetic testing and, your hormones, making sure your hormones look good and all of that. So, because there's so many things that can affect your fertility, and
Hmm.
especially even in a given month, that you just don't know. So I
So if
definitely
your
would
clinic
advocate.
is suggesting getting started right away, advocate and go to another
Yeah.
clinic or ask for these tests just to
Right.
make.
And I asked my doctor before, I'm like, hey, how long is this all going to take? And it's a month. One cycle you wait for your period and you can get like all this done in one cycle, so it's not like you're waiting months and months. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, let's give yourself the best chance that you have at getting pregnant, because you're going to spend a lot of money on all of this, whether you need sperm or
Yeah.
eggs or surrogate. Let's take a month and just make sure
Yeah.
everything looks good.
And you're going to spend a lot of time ahead creating your family and then having it. Like a month is nothing in comparison.
No, if you think about it,
Yeah.
it's just a blip in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems
Um,
like the end of the world, though, trust me.
and
I've
no, I'm
been
sure, but
there.
it's like if someone helps you put it in perspective, it helps. And so, are there any special considerations same-sex parents should take when writing their wills? This was another one from Instagram.
Yeah. So it's going to depend if you're married. So
Mm.
if you are legally married, fortunately, everything will just pass to your spouse. Like even if you didn't have a will, you should have a will. Highly
Yes.
suggest. If you don't, it's even more. If you're not married, it's even more important to have a will. Definitely talk to an estate planning attorney. I do have some on my directory, depending on where you're located. I don't have them in every state, but it's pretty similar as to
Mm.
what you're going to need. So it's fine if you if I don't have one on there. Most of them are going to know what to do in terms of LGBTQ plus wills. But yeah, definitely get a will in place, because that's also where, like, even if you don't go through the adoption, that you can name a guardian for your child,
Right.
or like different inheritance kind of stuff like that. So that's really important to have. We got ours right before we had our kids.
And make sure you're working with a lawyer with LGBTQ specialties or
Yeah.
experience. Okay, so just any other learnings or words of wisdom through this whole journey that we didn't specifically ask about? Anything else to share with us?
I think it's just, it can seem overwhelming when you are at the beginning and you look at everything that it takes. And it's
Mm-hmm.
exciting. It's exciting. But then when you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many things that we have to do and consider and pay for and all of that, but just take it step by step. I'm a list person, so I like to kind of write out, what do we need to do? When do we need to have it done by? Um, and for me, I found community on Instagram of other lesbian couples going through fertility journey.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can find yourself a community, whether it's virtual or in person, Instagram has been absolutely incredible for,
Right.
especially during, the pandemic, to just kind of support one another,
Yeah.
commiserate, and just know that you're not alone in whatever it is you're going through. Like, don't go through this alone. When we were trying for our first, I had a separate Instagram account that was private. And it was, where I would follow other lesbian fertility accounts. And so, my people in my personal life weren't a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it felt a little safer to share more.
Mm-hmm.
Now with my second, I shared everything from day one with
Yeah.
with the world. But if you're not ready yet, because I
Right.
think that it's really nice to have a safe place to land if God forbid something goes wrong,
Yeah.
and to have that community and to have that support.
I just think it's so incredible. I can't imagine having, gone through this before the social media communities to support. And you hear a lot
Yeah,
about this where, you know, people want to talk about it or follow accounts privately or be able to share with just the community. And they might not even told their friends or family they're starting a journey or they're experiencing infertility or they're just
yeah,
kind of going through it and they're not ready to share
yeah,
until they're farther along or they have a viable pregnancy. And whenever you're ready to share is fine, but it's just so
yeah,
helpful to be able to follow accounts and learn from others' questions and experiences. And you feel supported seeing what they're, going through. So,
and that you're
yeah.
not alone, and that like
Mhm.
nothing is wrong with you,
Right.
and that nothing is you didn't do anything to cause any issues, or you know what I mean. Like, I
Yeah.
think that it's very validating.
Yeah.
And it can be, infertility specifically can be a very, very isolating
Right.
experience. Um, so,
And
even if you have to create a separate Instagram account where it's all private and you just follow a bunch of,
mhm.
fertility accounts just to have that support.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
where you won't get annoying advice like just relax or too much toxic positivity or whatever, where people will understand and be on the same page as you.
Yeah.
So this was also educational. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Before we run out of time, I know you have family obligations, but just what else are you excited about with work currently or coming up? What should we look for from you, whether Pride
Yeah.
related or exciting initiatives? Just like to hear.
Yeah, Connecting Rainbows, we are continuing to build. I'm really excited to just now have some of the surrogacy resources for people. And then obviously you guys have go to GoStork to find your agency and all that, but just to kind of help people at least know the basics of
Right.
everything. we're so close to filling out the map of the United States. I'm still working through all of that.
Mhm.
I've partnered with some incredible brands this month that have just been so amazing for our community and have donated so much to different LGBTQ plus organizations. So it's been such an honor, and I'm hoping to continue those relationships throughout the year. So it's not just in June, for Pride. And then this weekend, my family and I are going on a trip to an all-inclusive little resort up in New York. This resort is completely diversifying their entire marketing. And so they're
Oh, I
bringing
love that.
us, yeah, they're
It's like
bringing
you
our
think of all
family.
inclusive in Mexico or something, even though it's gotten so much higher end and so different than used to be. But in New York, I love that.
Yep. Going up there, and they want to diversify their marketing. And so they're bringing our family up to, check it out and write
Oh,
a blog post and just kind of share our experience and our thoughts and how they be more inclusive to all types of families. So I'm really excited about that. It's so crazy. Like I started my Instagram account with like pictures of my cat.
wait, I'm sorry. I think I misheard you. It's obviously inclusive and friendly and welcoming, but is it also all inclusive? When you said all
It
inclusive,
is an all inclusive. Yeah, food
okay,
is included.
I got that right.
Yeah, food's
Just want to
included.
correct myself.
Yeah, food's included. Um, yeah, no, I mean, I started my Instagram account, like my personal one with like pictures of my cat. Now I've turned it into this like big LGBTQ plus advocacy platform. So it was like so not intentional, but it's amazing. It's incredible. And, it's an honor to help other people who are struggling, and
Yeah.
regardless of, their gender identity or sexual orientation, whatever they're going through, and hopefully my experience can, kind of help them.
Yeah, we feel that way as well. And it's like we're all helping in different ways, but we all have the same goal of,
Yeah.
helping people start their families. So,
Yeah.
and we'll look for your blog and get recommendations for our next family trip.
Yeah.
um, and one more thing before you go, just so everyone is aware, we also recently did a spotlight interview with Gena that you can find on our blog, and recently shared a quote from that interview from you that I loved. And it was, this journey can be an emotional roller coaster. Have a plan, but please be prepared to deviate from it. Know that you'll have a child one day. They may come to you in a different way than you thought or imagined, but once that child is placed in your arms, you will be so grateful for every bump in the road because it led to that baby, your baby. So thank you again for those thoughts and for everything else you shared today.
I
Um,
will.
and if anyone has any more questions for us or Gena, feel free to DM either of us, right?
Yeah, totally.
And check out all the resources available that will be so helpful for you on connectingrainbows.org. Again, if you're looking for your egg donor, surrogacy agency, or fertility financing, come to GoStork.com. And if you have other topics you'd like us to bring to these lives in the future, just let me know in the comments or DMs. And with that, hope you have a great rest of your day.
Me too.
And rest of your Pride Month. And if anyone will be in New York City this Sunday for Pride, maybe I'll see you there.
Oh, that would be fun. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I've been to New York Pride, but they were fun.
I've barely been in the city. Like we just have driven through quickly to like pick something up that was left there before the pandemic or something. But so this will be, I'm excited.
That's nice.
And you have a
Me
wonderful
too.
weekend. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.